In this video, I want to look at creating nested functions. And a nested function is just a function inside of another function. When you're using a nested function, you can actually use a function for the argument in another function, as we'll see in just a minute when I create one. A single formula can contain up to 7 levels of nested functions. So we're not going to get quite that complicated. And I'm going to start out in cell B10 on the carpool worksheet by nesting a sum function within a round function. So I'm going to start out first of all by going to my Formulas tab and to the Math and Trig functions and finding round. I'll move the function arguments up here where we can see them better. So in the number box here, we would normally click on the cell where the value is that we want to round. In this case, rather than doing that, I'm going to nest a sum function in that argument. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to the name box, and you can see that the round function is showing up in the name box right now. I'm going to click the down arrow, and you'll see a list of functions that I've used recently. Or if the function that you need isn't showing up, you can click on More Functions. So I'm going to go ahead and click Sum, and it assumes automatically that I want to sum B6 through B9, which is indeed the case. And if you look up here at the formula bar, you'll see that the sum function has been nested in the round function. You'll also notice that the parentheses for the sum function are a different color than those for the round function. So when you're creating a nested function like this, Excel color codes the parentheses. And this is helpful if you are typing out the function rather than using the dialog boxes, because it's important that you close all of those parentheses. Otherwise, your function won't work. You'll get an error message. Okay, so I'm finished with the sum function. So I need to get back up into the round function. So up here on the formula bar, I'm just going to go ahead and click on round. Now I can click in the number of digits dialog box and type a 0. And I can click OK. Just quickly, I'm going to demonstrate what I would do if I typed this function out. So I, of course, will start out with an equal sign, and then I'll just start typing the name of the function, and it gives me a list of functions that start with RO. So there's the round function. Now immediately inside the parentheses for the round function, I'm going to type sum. So I get the list of functions starting with SU. And I'm using tab to select the function names. So now I've got the sum function started. I can enter the arguments for the sum function, which would be the amounts for February in column C. I need to remember to close the parentheses on that function, so I have an opening and closing green parenthesis. I also need to remember to type a comma to switch to the next argument. which would be the number of digits for the round function. So then I'm done with the function. I've closed all of the sets of parentheses. I have 2 black parentheses and 2 green. It should be fine, so I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And there's my function. Okay, so in B11 we're going to create a nested if function, and according to the instructions in the book it says that we want to create a nested if function that will display 100 or more in row 11 if the results of the sum function, or the sum round, the round in the sum function rather, in row 10 are greater than or equal to 100. We also want to display between 90 and 100 if the result happens to be between 90 and 99. And finally, if it's below 90, we want to show less than 90 in row 11. So let's take a look here. I want to explain the logic, because they're just having you enter things in that dialog box, and I want you to understand the reasoning behind that a little bit. So if you'll recall, with an if function you have 3 arguments. You have the logical test, the value of true, and the value of false. And you start out with the logical test. So we're going to start out in B10 or in C10, and we want to check B10 to see if it's greater than or equal to 100. If that's true, then we want 100 or more to appear in row 11 in that cell. If it's not true, we're going to stick in the value of false argument, we're going to put in another if function. We're going to nest an if function to check to see if B10 is greater than or equal to 90. So when we create this if function, we want to start with the biggest amount and move down, because it will exclude the amounts that we've already tested for. So if B10 is indeed greater than or equal to 90, we're going to have it display between 90 and 100. If it's not, if it's false, we're going to have it display value if false, less than 90 in the cell, or we're just going to have less than 90 show up in the cell. So this is what the function is going to end up looking like once you've got it completely entered into the spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to the carpool worksheet, and I'm going to go to the logical functions and choose if, and I'm starting out here with the logical test, and I want to know if B10 is greater than or equal to 100. And if that statement is true, if B10 is greater than or equal to 100, the value of true will be 100 or more. Now the nice thing about using the dialog box is that you don't have to remember all of the syntax. You don't have to remember the parentheses, you don't have to remember the commas, you don't have to put the quotes around things that you want to appear as text. Excel will do all of that for you. So remember, we said back on the slide that if the value is false, if the logical test is false, then we want to start another if function. So I'm going to come over here to the name box like we did with the round and the sum function and choose if. And you can see here that it has indeed started another if function, and you can see the if nested here in the formula bar. So this time I'm going to test to see if B10 is greater than or equal to 90. And if that's true, I want the message in the cell to be between 90 and 100. And if it's false, I want the message to be less than 90. You can also nest formulas. You can have this if function do calculations. If you want to, there's a number of different things that you can do with a nested if function. So there's my function, and it worked correctly because I am getting the results that I expected. I just need to adjust the column widths a little bit, and I'm adjusting B manually because it's part of a merged cell with a longer entry. So there are our nested if functions, or our nested functions.